Hi there guys, my name is Ravi, and in this video I'm going to be covering off what actually is consulting. I'm going to be covering off 5 main topics. Number 1, what actually does consulting entail? Number 2, I'm going to share 2 examples of consulting in my career. Number 3, I'm going to talk about how I got into consulting and what my background was. Number 4, I'm going to talk about what the typical consultant can earn when you begin your consulting career before progressing through the different ranks. And finally, number 5, I'm going to cover off the pros and cons of consulting. So let's just get into it. What actually is consulting? Simply put, a consultant is someone that goes into a company and solves a specific problem that the client or customer is asking for. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's look at the company McDonald's. McDonald's are trying to grow and acquire maybe a competitive restaurant. They're trying to work out which restaurant should they acquire. They could hire a consultant to come along, do an assessment of all the different competitors in their industry, and then make a recommendation to them to say who should they actually acquire. That could be a typical strategy consulting project. Now, there are 5 main types of consultants, how I categorize them. There are the core strategy consultants, who typically look at the high-end strategy of how a company should operate, which direction they should go in, which investments they should make. There are also operational consultants. These consultants typically focus on things like supply chain, logistics, and processing and shipping. There are also financial consultants. They're typically looking at things like mergers and acquisitions, creating cost analysis, profitability assessments, etc., etc. Number 4 are organizational consultants. They typically look at the HR processes of a company and think about if there is a better way of the company organizing itself to be more efficient. Let's say they've acquired another company and they now want to look at how do these 1,000 or 2,000 additional employees integrate within the existing workforce. And number 5, you have IT consultants. They look at things like how to implement specific technologies. Maybe perhaps they're trying to build an app. Maybe they're trying to integrate a new software system. Now, it's important to call out, these aren't an exhaustive list of consultants. You can be operating in different spaces. If you're operating in strategy, that doesn't mean that you won't operate in operations. These are just some of the broad categories of consultants out there. Every consulting firm has a different way of structuring their various offers and various go-to-market strategies. So let's get into some real-life examples. One of my earliest stories was when I was asked to go and join an electrical supplier over in Washington State. They had a number of outages every storm season, and they wanted a better way of letting their customers know that their power was about to be gone out, or it was going to take an hour to fix their power. And they just wanted to keep their customers up to date, because customers would call in, be shouting down the phone of their customer service and say, look, when's my power coming back? And what they realized was whole areas would just lose their power until, their local workforce could go in there and fix the issue. So they asked our consulting firm to go in and do an assessment and find out what's the best way of implementing text and email messaging to their customers. Now, it's important to call out, I hadn't implemented a outage communication system before, but I could imagine what the customer experience would be if I had lost my power. And I could also imagine what are the types of things that I would want to know when my power is going out. For example, when is my power going to come back? Is there somebody fixing the issue? How long has my power been out for? So we went in, ran an analysis to find out what's going on in their current state. What were their biggest customer complaints? We analyzed their phone logs to see what were the customer's main complaint when they were, calling in. And then we started to realize there were specific things that we had to resolve. We went out, identified what the main vendors are in the technology space in terms of text and email communication, and we invited them to come in and give us a proposal to help our client. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying the entire project. The project took about 6 to 12 months, but hopefully this gives you an example of something that a consultant would come in to help a client with. Another very quick example, I was asked to go in and help a financial client. They had around 500 people in their IT department, and they were looking to reorganize themselves into a more efficient way. My background is in agile transformations, and I was asked to reorganize their team. Now, this wasn't a solo project. I had around 7 to 15 people working on this project. It took me around a year to completely deliver the entire project, but within the first 4 to 8 weeks, we ran an analysis on their existing organizational structure, and we had a complete reorg of their entire IT department to deliver work more efficiently. And you're probably wondering, how the heck did I even know what to do? Now, this comes with experience. I've witnessed and ran several transformation projects over your career, and you get better and better with each project that you work on. Now, you're probably wondering, how did I even get into consulting? Well, I studied maths and economics at college, and to be honest, I wasn't particularly academic. But what I did enjoy was actually applying skills in the real world. When I finished my college degree, I went and joined a company called Tesco, and I worked with them for a couple of years before being able to get a referral into a consulting firm based in London. I worked there for a couple of years before moving out to New York, where I've been there for the last 6 to 7 years now. Now, it's important to call out that you don't have to study maths and economics or business management or strategy at college. I had colleagues that had studied medieval history, film and studio, psychology, all kinds of different things. And there were plenty of folks that did not have an MBA or a master's program. In fact, the majority of consultants and my colleagues had a basic bachelor's degree and then had jumped in and just worked their way up. I'll do a complete separate video on my tips on how to get a job in consulting. But my 3 main takeaways are: show a willingness to learn and be adaptable. You have to show that you've taken on new skills. Bring your personality. Hopefully you have some outside interest, not just your college degree. What makes you interesting? What makes you tick? And my final tip would simply be, you have to be comfortable learning new things and being able to learn rapidly on the job. Okay, topic number 4. Let's cover off how much you can earn in consulting. So typically straight out of college, if you were to get into an entry-level, analyst position at any of the main consulting firms, you'd be earning between $65,000 and $85,000. Now, it's important to call out, if you get into one of the top 3 firms, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, or Bain, that entry-level salary could be higher. Now, of course, that's your entry-level, salary. As you start to progress through the rank, after 5 to 10 years of experience, you could be earning between $120,000 and upwards of $200,000 plus. Let's get into the pros and cons of consulting. I'm going to start off with some of the negatives first, and they may be a positive, but the first thing to call out is that you might be traveling a lot. Now, obviously, right now with the pandemic, we're traveling a little bit less, but the reality is, our clients expect us to be there in person quite often, and you have to be comfortable traveling, and that might be a negative for you. For me, it was more of a positive. I got to see a lot of the US and you get used to it. Another main negative is if you'd like to see things completely to the very end, consulting may not be right for you. We're quite often asked to go in the middle of a project or early on in the project or the end of a project to do a specific assignment or a specific challenge. And sometimes our clients are working on projects that could take 2 to 4 years, and we just aren't there for that entire period of time. Another main thing to call out as a negative is the pressure. The reality is you have a day rate and you have to provide value to the client. Often clients will be watching over you, they're really interested in what you're working on every day, and you have to be able to handle that pressure and show and bring value to the client every single day. Now let's jump into the positives, which there are so many, and I'm going to tell you why it was a great career choice for me. Number 1, you get to travel. If you like traveling and if you don't like staying in the same place or in the same office every week, you get to travel all across the country. Another big benefit is accessibility to folks that you never even imagined that you'd be talking to. I've spoken to CEOs, board members, senior directors of people that I really wouldn't have probably had the chance to speak to if I was working in a regular job. You're being hired to solve problems right at the C-level of companies, so you get the opportunity to present and ask questions from the folks that are making decisions right at the very top. Another main benefit of consulting is the ability to advance upwards in your career. If you're doing great and you find yourself enjoying the work and you find yourself that your clients are enjoying your performances, you will be progressed through your consulting ranks very quickly. And the final point is flexibility. And I don't mean the point around travel. I'm talking about you do have the flexibility of what you want to work on every single day. You have to manage your client obligations. But let's say you work on those 6 of the hours of every single day. The other 2 hours might be internal projects that you're interested in working on. These are just some of the pros and cons, guys, but for me overall, consulting was a fantastic option for me at a time when I really didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. It gave me a chance to work in so many different industries, so many different countries, and I highly recommend anyone who's looking for a job in consulting to really give it a go. I hope this video was helpful, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.